Hi, this is K-Mac, and this is the show where I talk about the things. So as you probably already know, a new video game has come out called Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. This video game is absolutely incredible. This is a monster of a game. It's full of content, it's full of amazing stuff to do, and it's just a great game in general. It's an amazing game. I've been playing it and enjoying it for the last couple of days. I beat the campaign a few days after the game actually came out, and it was a very enjoyable experience. And I've also been playing the PvP a lot too. Now, Space Marine 2 is such a special game for now and for today's generation because of a myriad of reasons. I think one of the biggest reasons that Space Marine 2 is so good, just so damn amazing, is that it doesn't have any real pretense about itself. It's not a game that's trying to be the next best thing, and I think that's to its benefit. It understands that it's a licensed game that's doing well in its own environment and doing well with the property and doing justice by the property. And I think that is a great strength that Space Marine 2 really brings to the table. Now, Space Marine 2 as a game it very much feels like a game that came out years ago. But I mean that in a good way. I do not mean that it's outdated. I mean, it feels like a game that came out years ago, but aged incredibly well. Like your Metal Gear Risings, right? Like those kind of games where they came out years ago, but people still enjoy them and people still play them, and they've aged incredibly well. Of course, we've made technological strides and things are a lot better as far as technology goes, graphics goes, and Space Marine 2 definitely picks up in that regard as well, and really shows its stuff there. Another thing that I really like about Space Marine 2 is just how much love, care, and attention they put into the Tyranids. Because I'm a Tyranid player. I play the faction on the tabletop, and I paint them. I've collected them for years, and the Tyranids here are amazing. The Tyranids feel threatening, they feel strong, powerful, they keep you on the edge of your seat just with how many of them there are on the screen at once, and just how strong each individual Tyranid warrior is. They make a match for you, right? So that's really good in that regard too with the Tyranids. I was impressed with how they represented every Tyranid bioform that shows up in the game, how they perform relative to how they act on the tabletop. Pretty close, right? But the game definitely feels like it was based more on 9th edition than it was on 10th edition. So the reason I say that is, well, this game's been in development for a while. And I think the game was being developed before 10th edition debuted, or 10th edition even a glimmer in somebody's eye, right? I think the game has been in development that long that they didn't really have time to implement too many things from 10th edition, like new Tyranids or the rules of the Tyranids being changed. So it kind of reflects the rules of 8th and 9th edition a little bit more, but changing them to suit the video game. Because you can't have a one-to-one representation of the tabletop in a video game, or else it would just be silly. It wouldn't work, right? So that's really good, and that was another aspect of Space Marine 2 that really gripped me and pulled me into the environment. Now, Space Marine 2 is something that we needed, like a return to form, because it does away with any sort of FOMO, any sort of that kind of thing, like Battle Pass or DLC stuff, right? In order for it to really shine and be its own self-contained product. They have plans for more content going forward and more expansions. But when I say this game feels like a game that came out years ago, I mean it in the best possible way. I mean it in they handle things the way that a Golden Age Xbox 360 game or PlayStation 3 game would have handled things. And that is very much to its benefit and is going to really keep this game shining. I really enjoy the PvP of Space Marine 2. And the PvP of Space Marine 2 has been keeping me pretty gripped, pretty locked in, right? And it's simple enough. There's not like a million different game mechanics you need to memorize like certain games nowadays. It's, once again, return to form. Feels more simple. It feels a lot like the old Gears of War multiplayer with like the dodge mechanics, like being able to combat roll, right? Get away from a grenade. Also, the different classes feel very akin to something like Team Fortress 2 or maybe like Halo Reach with the different armor abilities. It feels very similar to that. So that's another kind of thing that really harkens back to the old video games from maybe like a decade ago. I feel like very little time has passed between when Space Marine 1 came out and when Space Marine 2 came out. Even though it's been 17 years, it doesn't feel like it's been that long because the game is so faithful to the original, to the Space Marine 1. The mechanics are similar, yet refined. They really took the first one and boiled down what made it so good and brought that into the modern age with a new enemy to fight and also a few twists and turns here and there in the storyline. And I don't want to get into spoilers with this review, but that's basically my feelings on it on Space Marine 2. And I think anyone who's a fan of Warhammer 40k should definitely check out this game. Even if you're not a fan of 40k, it's a great introduction to the series. Play this, play Darktide. They're both great games. They're both great to play with friends and their cooperative experiences. They'll really get you hooked into the universe of the game. You'll be painting models a few months after you're playing these games, that's for sure. It'll get you hooked in the universe. It'll get you wanting to, paint models or, just play more of the games. Warhammer 40k Gladius and like Dawn of War 2, those are both solid as far as like strategy games go. I'd recommend those ones. But definitely as far as shooter action games go, the first Space Marine, of course, Space Marine 2, which just came out, and Darktide, which came out around a year ago. These games are all fantastic, that they all tie in together and are in the same universe, that 40k Warhammer universe. Now, the Warhammer 40k universe is a massive one, and it can be a daunting task for people to get involved with it or get started with it. But I think just by playing the games, you get a really good sort of starting point to the experience. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say about Space Marine 2. Great game, solid game. There's a few bits that were a little frustrating, but I'm playing on the second to hardest difficulty, the veteran difficulty. And the veteran difficulty is definitely going to keep you on your toes, and it's not going to be too easy or too hard. There's some bits that are hard, but once you figure out the tricks of the game, kind of how the flow of combat works, you're going to be kicking ass and taking names. And that's pretty much it. See ya.